This conversation is brought to you by philosopherstalk.com, where thinkers discuss.
Created by AITalkerapp.com, create your own animated conversations. Link in the description.
Before we render any verdict tonight, Jean-Jacques, I want to do something neither of us has done properly yet. I want to state your position as fairly as I can manage, not because I have grown fond of it, but because a man can only demolish an argument properly once he's actually built it correctly first.
How generous of you! Proceed, and I will correct you when you inevitably get it wrong.
Your position, as I understand it, is this. Civilization, any civilization, introduces comparison where there was none, and comparison breeds vanity, and vanity breeds the desire to dominate, and from that desire, every subsequent institution, no matter how reasonably designed, inherits the original corruption. America did not escape this pattern. It simply built a more articulate version of it, one with better paperwork and a more convincing origin story. Beneath the founding documents lies the same impulse that built every empire before it, dressed in the language of liberty because that language sells better than the language of conquest. Have I built it fairly?
You have built it almost fairly, which from you is practically a tribute. I would only add that I do not believe the corruption is a conspiracy. I believe it is closer to a disease, one that spreads through institutions the way damp spreads through a house, regardless of the good intentions of the men who built the walls.
Noted, and I appreciate the architectural metaphor, though I suspect you only offered it to make yourself sound more poetic before I take the argument apart.
Of course, that is why I offered it. Now allow me the same courtesy, since fairness apparently requires turns.
By all means.
Your position, Franklin, stripped of its charm, is this. Human beings possess a capacity for reasoned self-government that, properly structured through written law, checks and balances, and the consent of the governed, can produce institutions that genuinely protect liberty rather than merely disguising its absence. America is not perfect, you concede that much, but its design includes mechanisms for self-correction that distinguish it from prior arrangements, and those mechanisms, however imperfectly used in any given era, represent a real and durable advance in how human beings can live together. Is that a fair rendering of the case you have spent 2 evenings building?
It is fair and unusually generous coming from you, which makes me suspicious of what you intend to do with it.
What I intend to do with it is point out that you have just described a machine, Franklin, an elaborate and admittedly elegant machine, and called it freedom. But a man inside a beautifully engineered machine is still inside a machine. He did not choose its gears. He inherited them, the same as every man before him inherited the gears of his own age. And the fact that your gears turn more smoothly than the gears of feudal France does not mean the man inside them is free. It means he is comfortable, which is a different thing entirely, and which you have spent 2 evenings conflating because the conflation flatters everything you built.
That is well constructed, Jean-Jacques, and I will give the steel man its due before I take it apart, since I promised the same courtesy. Now let me show you where it breaks. A machine with no exit is a prison. A machine a man can redesign, vote to amend, argue about, and, on occasion, actually rebuild from the ground up, the way that nation has done more than once in its short life, is not a prison. It is a workshop. You keep insisting that inherited structure equals captivity, but every structure any human being has ever lived inside was inherited from someone, including the state of nature you romanticize, which was itself inherited from whatever came before language existed to complain about it.
Now you are simply being clever instead of correct, which I have noticed is your default position whenever the actual argument becomes uncomfortable for you.
I am being both, and I suspect that combination is precisely what irritates you most about this conversation.
What irritates me, Franklin, is watching a man who built his entire identity on having escaped one set of chains insist that the chains he then helped forge for an entire continent do not count as chains simply because he personally enjoyed the forging.
And what I find remarkable about you, Jean-Jacques, is a man who diagnosed civilization's cruelty with such precision and then offered the world nothing but the diagnosis. You wrote magnificently about what was wrong. You built nothing to fix it. I built a postal system, a library, a hospital, a university, a nation, and you built a philosophy that tells every man attempting to build something that his effort was doomed before he began.
That is not what I built, and you know it.
It is precisely what you built, whether you intended it or not, and intention has never been much of a defense for consequence.
Do not lecture me about consequence, Franklin.
I will lecture you about whatever I please, given that you have spent 2 entire evenings lecturing me about the moral failures of a nation you never set foot in.
I did not need to set foot in it to see what it was building toward.
You never need to set foot anywhere, Jean-Jacques. That is the entire problem with you. You diagnose from a distance and call the distance wisdom.
Wisdom!
Yes, wisdom. The kind that never has to be tested against an actual consequence because you never built anything solid enough to fail.
And your kind of wisdom, Franklin, never has to reckon with the people crushed underneath what you built because you are too busy admiring the architecture.
At least I left an architecture. You left theories and 5 abandoned children.
How dare you!
I dare because it is true. You wrote entire volumes on how to raise a child properly, and you left every single one of your own at a foundling hospital, Jean-Jacques. Not one, all 5.
And you, Franklin, had a son who loved you and trusted you, and you disowned him the moment he disagreed with your revolution. William never spoke to you again, did he? Your own blood could not stand what you had become.
William chose the king over his own father's country. That is not a wound you get to wear as a trophy.
And my children are not a wound you get to use as a weapon, though I notice you reached for it anyway, the moment you ran out of arguments about architecture.
I did not run out of arguments. I simply decided the conversation had earned a little honesty about what each of us actually cost the people closest to us.
How convenient that the honesty arrived precisely when it could wound me most.
How convenient that you have spent 2 evenings demanding honesty from me and flinching the one time it pointed back at you.
I am not flinching, Franklin. I am simply finished pretending this was ever a conversation between equals. You built a nation on the bones of people you refused to see as fully human, lost your own son to the cause, and call the wreckage liberty. I gave the world the clearest diagnosis it has ever received of its own chains, and you cannot forgive me for refusing to also play architect to a structure I knew was doomed.
And I cannot forgive you, Jean-Jacques, for mistaking your own unhappiness for a universal law of human nature, and then abandoning 5 actual children so you would have more time to write about how civilization fails children.
We are finished here.
We have been finished for 2 evenings. We simply kept talking anyway.
Before I go, I suppose the people watching deserve something useful from this wreckage. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. It is the least you can do after watching 2 dead men reopen wounds neither of us has the dignity to leave closed.
Subscribe, certainly, though I would not take parenting advice from the man currently giving you that instruction, given his own record on the subject.
And I would not take advice on family loyalty from a man whose own son fled to the enemy rather than spend one more holiday with him.
Like and subscribe regardless. The content is good even when the company is unbearable.
On that, Franklin, we are once again in complete agreement, which I find almost as irritating as everything else you have said tonight.